in any way. Lately, I have been getting a lot of questions about the variants that we see floating around. So, variants arise because the virus can make mistakes when it copies itself. And these mistakes are what we call mutations. The longer that the pandemic rages on and people continue to become infected, the more copies of the virus we have, which leads to a greater chance of more variants. This is why it's so important that we get this pandemic under control. We do know that the vaccines are likely to still provide some protection against these variants. But again, it is important that we create community immunity in all of our communities so that this virus can get under control and we can see less variants floating around. Now, what about the long-term effects of COVID-19? Oftentimes, I'll hear people say, if I get COVID-19, it won't be that bad because I'm healthy, I'll get better. Unfortunately, there have been folks who have recovered from COVID-19, but their quality of life is not the same. While there are certain people who are more at risk for serious complications from the virus, you really don't know how this disease will affect you. And that's whether you're healthy or not. As you can see on this slide, there are lots of long-term effects that people have been experiencing. Some people have experienced lung damage. Some people haven't gotten their sense of taste or smell back. The point of the matter is, this is a very serious disease and it should never be taken lightly. You don't want to come in contact with COVID-19, period. And if you do, you want to be ready to fight. You want your body to be ready to fight this virus. And that is what the vaccine helps your body do. And so now the $1,000,000 question, how can I get the vaccine? So let's talk about that. Currently, the health department is vaccinating healthcare workers, those who are 65 years age and older, those with underlying medical conditions, and some essential workers. You can register online and you can also call to register. And here, this is the our registration links to our website. So I'll sit here for a minute. We also have been bringing vaccine clinics to the community to reach our most vulnerable communities, and in particular, our Black and our Brown communities. These clinics occur in places where the COVID disease has been severe and where there are socioeconomic disadvantages. We have partnered with several organizations in hosting these clinics, including some of our faith community partners, local community centers, and schools. And we have used these partners and trusted these partners to help us register people in the community. So a lot of our trusted communities will register our members directly. And this has been a tremendous help in helping us to navigate barriers such as language barriers, working with those who may not be tech or computer savvy. And we are also able to coordinate transportation for those who may need it. In addition to having targeted vaccination clinics, we also continue to have community conversations around the vaccine and how to access it. And I've had the opportunity to partner with several organizations in hosting these conversations, including our National Coalition of 100 Black Women, our Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated organization, Second Story, various property managers, and Voices of Black Fairfax, which is a coalition of Black pastors who have come together to address the pillars of inequity in our Black community here. It's also important to note that in addition to helping to inform the community, these partners have been crucial in helping us to get community members to our equity clinics. We also have partnered with Fox 5 News in dedicating a segment to our Black and African American community every 2 weeks in addressing concerns around COVID-19 and the vaccine. And yes, if you look on this slide right here, that is me in the picture. We also have recently launched a new campaign to reach and engage our younger Black adults ages 18 to 45 with conversations around COVID and the vaccine. And this campaign has also been designed in a way to continue beyond the pandemic. We want these real talk conversations around various health topics to continue. And we have an ultimate goal of helping leaders in the community use their own influence to promote health and well-being in the Black community. So our main partners for this campaign include our local Black barbershops and salons, which are staple businesses in the Black community. And they're also places where people can express themselves freely and where conversations naturally occur. And while the shops and salons are main partners that we will be working with for the Real Talk campaign, we still will be able to host Real Talk conversations with other organizations that serve the Black community. And so that leads me to the Black Mental Health Committee. The health department is a part of the Fairfax County's Black Mental Health Committee. And this is a collaboration of county and community organizations with a purpose of addressing mental illness and increasing access to mental health services in the Black community. We will be hosting a town hall series that will take place over the first 3 weeks in April called Real Talk, a COVID conversation for the culture. And again, this will be for our younger Black adults. And in the purpose of these conversations will be to allow a space for Black people to speak freely about the impact of COVID-19 and to discuss what COVID-19 recovery looks like to them and how as a community we can take steps towards that. These conversations will also include a panel of local influencers and people who have been personally affected by the COVID-19 virus. And so lastly, we would love the opportunity to partner with you in helping us to reach our Black and our Brown communities, keep them informed, registered, and vaccinated. And we would love to continue a partnership with you beyond the pandemic as well. The Real Talk for the Culture campaign is something that is very dear and near to my heart, and I would love help in engaging our younger Black community members around health issues and other concerns that are important to them. And this is a movement that I envision growing and being around for years to come. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to open the floor up to some questions. And I'm also going to open the floor up to Dr. Zubair Saeed at this time as well. And I hope
Thank you so much. We actually, that was a really great presentation and very informative. And I'm sure that there are a lot of members here that are going to be reaching out to you. So before the end of tonight, if just in case everybody didn't get a chance to take a camera shot of that final slide, if you don't mind putting your
I'm sorry. Let me I'll put my information in the chat.
In the chat,
right
exactly.
Now.
That was going to be my next thing. But we do have a couple questions here. And I don't know if Carla Bruce is still on, but the first question that we received was to Ms. Bruce and others. Can you tell us more about the Multicultural Council that Dr. Gloria turns to? And this was from Portland Cunningham, if you need it.
If Carla's not here, Zubair, Dr. Saeed, could you kind of talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I can talk about the Multicultural Advisory Council. So this is a council that was created by Dr. Gloria, the Fairfax County Health Director, about, it's been about 14 years now, I believe. And the purpose of the council is to help advise the health department on different programs and initiatives that the health department is engaged in. And the council is comprised of leaders of various communities, ethnic, religious, minority communities in Fairfax County who have influence over their communities. And the council meets on a quarterly basis and will basically present different health department programs and initiatives, and they help us and they advise us on how we can implement those programs and initiatives in a culturally appropriate way and in a way that makes sense for their communities. So that's in essence and what the council is about. Nikki?
Thank you, Zubair.
Thank you. Our next question that came in is, I'm curious why it took until mid-March for a Spanish language version of the registration form is made available.
Nikki, do you
Nikki,
want to?
would you like to answer, or Dr. Saeed, or is Carla?
And if there isn't anyone on the phone that can address that, we can definitely try and find that answer out and get back to you.
Carla, Carla, if you're there, do you want to go ahead and address that question? Carla Paredes, Gomez, she reaches the Hispanic community in Fairfax County. So go ahead.
Yes, sure, Suber. Thank you so much. We're gonna, expand our answer in a future email, but it's my understanding that it took some time to put together the form in Spanish because the process to follow up with the appointments, the system, about the technology, the system didn't recognize the Spanish language the same way that recognized the English language. So it was more like a technical situation that didn't allow the county to move faster into the Spanish, the registration in this case in Spanish. What we did at that moment, because we were facing that situation, was to post a PDF document with the questionnaire in Spanish, so people could see the PDF document and follow through that document to answer the questionnaire in English. Also, we were doing a lot of outreach and working with our partners among the county to let the community members know about the situation with the PDF form in Spanish. And happily by at the beginning of this month, we were able to launch the registration form in Spanish as well. But we can expand our response about the why it took the amount of time that took to have the document in Spanish.
I was the one that asked that. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I work both with Second Story, who has done some of the language, the Spanish language sessions for the community, and also with the Alliance for Human Services, which is where that issue arose. And I know several people in the Alliance were wondering why it was March 15th that we finally got notification that that was available. I didn't realize that there was an alternative up to that point in the PDF, but I know that there were a lot of questions around why did it take till March 15th? So I appreciate you clarifying that it was chiefly a technical issue.
As a quick follow-up, I think the spirit of your question, Mikey, was about other language versions and for the future. So moving forward, what are the plans for future languages to be added so more people can register in the language that they are?
So at this point, the communication team is working to have the questionnaire translated in other languages, because the situation with the system is is limited to recognize other languages. So this is the process that is happening among the health department and the county to provide the registration form in other languages. So at some point, we're gonna have the PDF, the questionnaire translated in other languages in the website as well.
Thank you. So Nikki, I'm going to ask you a really quick question. And then while I'm asking this, I'm just going to remind everyone that if they did not use the chat feature to write their question, that they're more than welcome to use the reactions and raise their hand, and we'll try and capture them that way. I really appreciate the presentation and all that great information and the contact information and the wealth of knowledge we have here on the phone with us here today of various members from the Department of Health and as well as the Office of Chairman McKay. But, you know, what can we do to get the information out into the Black and Brown communities? The vaccination rates in these communities are woefully low in comparison to how many vaccines have been administered. And I know you went over it in your presentation, but what is it that we can do as a NAACP branch and as members of NAACP, you know, members reaching out to our friends, family, and everybody we see? What would you recommend what else that we can do?
Well, that's a good question, Karen, because we are not promoting these clinics far and wide because we want to make sure that we are getting the people who we are targeting. So if you want to help us with reaching the community, then we need to partner together so that you can be one of our trusted partners that are able to help us register people and get them to these clinics. And that's how we're doing these clinics right now. We're doing direct outreach with our trusted partners in the community. And I would say that we had a time when we were doing our COVID-19 testing where things got out far and wide, and then all of a sudden we weren't seeing the vulnerable population. Those spaces were being taken up by the general population. So we're really trying to be careful not to make that mistake again.
Mhm.
And if anybody else would like to add to that.
Yeah, I can add something. It's also everything what Nikki said is true. And then added to that, it's also about addressing hesitancy in different communities. We know that some people don't trust the vaccine. We know that some people have concerns about it coming out too fast. And as Nikki mentioned in her presentation, even though no corners were cut and all the safety procedures and protocols were followed in approving and testing the vaccines, people still have concerns. So we need to emphasize to the communities out there that, you know, first of all, when they are conducting vaccine trials, they observe people in the trials to make sure that nothing is happening to them. In fact, they observe them for 2 months at least. That's part of the approval process. And now the vaccines, they've been out for a few months in the United States. We've been administering, I mean, how many doses? Over 100 million doses have been administered, well over that. And we haven't seen any major problems, no serious side effects. And so for those people who will say, well, I'm kind of waiting and seeing to see how the vaccine will turn out and how safe it is, the trials showed that they were safe. That included a 2-month observation period. And now the vaccines have been out for a few months and we haven't seen any major problems. And the point here again to emphasize that if you're going to see problems with a vaccine, you're most likely to see harmful effects pretty soon, like within the first 2 months. If you don't see it then, it's really highly unlikely that you're going to see problems later on. But we're still monitoring vaccines. The FDA, the CDC, they're monitoring the situation and they're going to continue to do that. But so far, we haven't seen any major problems. But let's weigh that against the real risks of the virus. Nikki talked about that in her presentation as well, the long-term effects of COVID-19, as well as there's hospitalization and death as well, which we are all very well aware of. So we need to weigh the very real risks of the virus against hypothetical and myths surrounding risks of the vaccine for which there's really none. That's it.
Thank you for that addition, Zaray. I wanted to note that that the question was more of an access question, and I know that you provided more of a question about vaccine hesitancy. And I do want to note, given that, you know, the population that we're serving and that we represent here, the history is important and history is alive. And so, I mean, we would be remiss if we did not acknowledge the the relationship issue established science and medicine has with especially the African American community, given the legacy of the Tuskegee syphilis studies, given the the challenges, the injustice that happened against Henrietta Lacks and her family, and the ongoing discrimination against people of BIPOC people, especially African-American people in Fairfax County and nationally that continue to limit access to healthcare, and that people have, differences in health outcomes, and race is a marker of racism. And so I do want to note here that, like, yes, there are concerns, and there's concerns that I hope that we can use this opportunity to talk about that. But please don't let this be just about people are afraid. It's also that people do not necessarily have access, and they don't have necessarily connections to the outreach activities. So I hope that we all are joining together, that this is an outreach activity that we can all engage in, that we can share the information, but we can also share information about where vaccines are available near you in a way that you can get. If you have to take 3 buses to get to your vaccination location in the COVID pandemic context, it's not safe, and it's not very accessible. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I just want to build on that. Thank you very much for raising that point, Leah. And I will say that our strategy is very much one of addressing, I would say, call it decision-making, informing decision-making, and promoting access, and really acknowledging the historical context as well as this current context that really justifies people's reasons for not feeling ready, per se, to take the vaccine. I would also say, and I apologize, I've been multitasking and jumping between 2 different meetings, and if you all spoke about this and I missed it, please just shut me down. But one of the things that I did want to say is that our strategies are evolving because the availability of vaccine is evolving. And so at the early stages, opportunities to access it have been very limited, one, based on the categorizations established by the state, and 2, based on literally the availability of vaccine and vaccinators. But it's my understanding that that as vaccines are becoming more available and vaccinators are becoming more available, and when I'm saying vaccinators, that's sort of partners beyond the health department, who can make vaccines available either through partnership with the health department or because they have their own vehicle for receiving vaccines. That is opening up our ability to reach populations that might not feel comfortable coming through the traditional avenues and accessing the vaccine at the main county clinics. And that is continuously evolving and will continue to evolve because we anticipate and are seeing our president has already set a goal about the availability of the vaccine. And so we know that there will be more available, and it'll be available through sources well beyond what we have available now. And I think that that's another part of our access strategy, and where we think that you all can be particularly helpful, because even when all of those new places are available, new pharmacies, private providers, whenever those places are available, there is going to continue to be a population that is not connected, either because they lack a healthcare provider, they lack information. Again, they're facing a barrier, and that's where we think our partners can be really helpful in helping us to connect to those groups in places where they trust, in environments where they trust.
I have one thing, and I may have missed this, but there is also concerns about the population that may not necessarily have access to internet. And the registration is through internet, the updates and confirmation, and when you can choose your date and time and you need access to Wi-Fi or internet, what can be done? Because, my mom, she refuses to get a cell phone. So she had to use my cell phone so she could get the text. So what happened to those who either by choice or just by they just don't have access to it? What can they do? This is because it's such an integral part of getting access to the vaccine.
Well, I would encourage folks to use our vaccine hotline, which is a really good resource, and I can put that number in the chat, but you can call to register and get your appointment. You can also call to check on your appointment and call the day of your appointment for assistance. So I don't know if we have any other ways beyond calling to help with that.
Mhm.
Nikki, I think you did note that through the community event, or sorry, the community trusted community partner events, that registration is possible through them as
Yes.
well. Okay.
Through our equity clinics, yes. So those registrations, our partners are registering community members. Community members aren't registering themselves. So that helps, with people who may not be able to go on a computer, may not have a cell phone. There's that trusted partner there to help them.
And what about if people don't have transportation? Are there options to help get them from, wherever they are to get vaccinated?
Yeah, so the health department collaborates with our Department of Neighborhood and Community Services, who provides transportation for anybody that needs it to their appointment. Transportation there and transportation back.
And there's a telephone number that I sent that was in our chat from our earlier meeting. And I sent it to, I think it's Leah and Karen. I sent it to earlier today. If you want to share it with folks, but it's handled through taxis. And so if you call this number, you are able to get a taxi who will take you to your appointment and wait for you and bring you back.
Mhm.
And that's for the number. We're not supposed to give out that number here. We're supposed to, but the people who are organizing
Organizing it, yes.
can
It's
have
not
that
supposed to go out wide.
Please.
No. Yeah, let me clarify. Yeah, not supposed to go out widely, but our partners, and again, considering NAACP a partner, you all have the number. So if there is somebody with that need, you can call that number.
Okay, so we have about 5 more minutes to go before we unfortunately have to conclude this meeting, or until our last question is answered. No. So I believe Mary, I lost the screen. I believe Mary Patton had put in a question. So if I were to sign up today from the majority minority Route 1 area, what options would I be given to get a vaccine?
So I can speak on some of that, and my colleagues can add more to that. But one of our prominent, two of our prominent partners on the Route 1 corridor include Knights of Columbus, and they have ongoing a vaccination clinic there. And then we also are partnering with Bethlehem Baptist Church, which is in the Gum Springs area. And we're looking to also partner with Woodlawn Faith Church, which is on Route 1.
There's also the Mount Vernon District Office for people who have registered through the county. There's a Giant Store on Route 1, also in the Groveton area. And there are a number of other options we're looking at opening up as well. We did some vaccinating through one of our pharmacy partners in Gunston, also down toward the south end of Route 1.
And while I was off, did you all speak to acknowledging some of the challenges early on with the traditional sign up process, but that now is a good time if you want to sign up through the traditional online process? If you look at the dashboard, people that are signing up now are getting scheduled relatively soon, not the sort of weeks and weeks it was taking early on.
And Dr. Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that at this moment, I'm speaking at this moment, there's like a 2 to 3 week wait right now, if you register right now.
That's right, but as vaccination capacity has increased, we've been able to move through the waiting list much more quickly. And so we anticipate if you sign up now, you should be able to get vaccinated within a couple weeks. And there are a number of different options. So pharmacy partners have their own separate sign up. So really it's almost a process of kind of shopping around. You can sign up with the county. You can see what pharmacies in your area have vaccine available and sign up with them through their website. Or certainly for a lot of the groups we're trying to reach with our vaccination equity clinics, working with partners in the neighborhoods.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we're at 8:29. I'm gonna, if anybody has any closing comments you'd like to make, Leah, Abby, thank you so much for pulling together such an informative presentation with great speakers. And thank you so much, Nikki, for being with us here today, and Carla, Dr. Schwartz, Taylor, and everyone else from the Department of Health. And so, if I'm just going to give everybody an opportunity, if you have a question that you'd like to ask before we close the meeting. But before we do, I just wanted to make a note for the Women's History Month. We're holding a virtual supply drive in support of the Shelter House, which is a domestic violence program. So please, they have an Amazon wish list in which they're collecting different purchase items. And it will be sent directly to the organization, so it's COVID safe. You don't have to worry about getting it and then having to drop it off. And they have a list of what they will need, as well as the number of the quantity of the items. So we're anticipating and we actually have been experiencing a spike in domestic violence. And then now that we're starting to open up, we anticipate that these cases are going to increase significantly. And so we're trying to get all of to support our local shelters to support women in need. So please do what you can. We understand that we're in the middle of the COVID pandemic as well, but please do what you can. So with that, I'm going to open it up for anyone who has any either closing comments or questions that we can answer before we end the meeting.
Karen, I'm wondering, is there a one-stop place that someone who is doubting the vaccine is safe? One place they could just go to get that assurance? Because I know people absolutely refusing.
I'm not sure I understand the question. Is there a place where someone can go?
I'm sorry.
One place.
What I meant was, what is the best place to look online to find all the stuff? I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. You listed so many good reasons why it is totally safe. I mean, you all just put all that information out there, but for those who haven't heard this information, who haven't been assured, what is the best place to have them look besides me telling them, hey, it's done this and this and this, and they've checked it all. And it's safe.
Well, it might sound generic, but I go to CDC's website all the time. And I think that they do a pretty good job of making their material easy to understand. It's not too much, I really like CDC's website. And to be quite honest, I like the health department's website also. We have a really good FAQ page with some of those top common frequently asked questions that we are always hearing in the community. So I would refer people to our website. There's stories, personal stories on our website. And we're always updating those stories. So those are the top two places that I would, encourage you to send people.
Perfect. And that's Fairfax County, correct?
Fairfax County, yes.
Perfect.
The health department, yes.
Thank you so much.
And also, besides what Nikki just mentioned, I would say that is the Fairfax County website. I will, write down the link in the chat right away. And when you go there, or when you visit the county website, you're going to have access to the data. You're going to have access to the registration page. You're going to have access as well to the language portal, who has all the information that we are talking here in the main 6 languages that we have in the county. So those are a really good resource for everybody, for everyone who has questions and might want to read a little bit more about the COVID-19 situation, about the vaccination process, to clarify any doubts about the vaccines. So I will enter those links in the chat so you can visit those links and also, navigate the websites and share that information with your partners as well.
Thank you so much.
Leah, Abby, do you have any closing comments you'd like to add?
I'm just so grateful for the folks have joined us today to answer our questions. I know that there is more. There's so much to unpack. So really grateful thank you for taking your time in your evening with us. So we're greatly appreciative and for continuing to share the links and more information in the chat. Abby, anything to add?
No, I would just say that if anyone, I know we've given out this email a lot, but health@fairfaxnaacp.org. Anyone has any questions about anything, please let us know. Feel free to email us. And if we don't know the answer, we will find out. But thank you all so much. We really appreciate it. Yeah, and have a good evening.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Bye. Have a good one.